Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the We Love Your Arsenal YouTube channel. It's been a while, hasn't it? But we're back with another transfer video. It has been pretty quiet since we signed Zinchenko on the incoming front. So we haven't made as many videos. But, if you're watching this and you enjoy it, subscribe, listen to our podcast. The link will be in the description. We spoke at length about our victory over Bournemouth, our potential title hopes, and also we spoke a little bit about today's topic in this transfer video, which is Pedro Neto. Got Rob with me, obviously. I've started. This is a little plug for Arsenal Vision. Quickly off the bat, I've started watching their scouting video. They watch all the players' best actions. They look at also some of the things he could do better. You can see every single action on Y Scout. So I've started watching that. And it's got me excited. I'm not going to lie. Rob, right off the bat, give me your thoughts on Pedro Neto potentially arriving at Arsenal. David Ornstein giving the report. It looks feasible.
Yeah, I think it does. I think this morning the report has been that they want double basically what they got for Morgan Gibbs-White. I'm not sure whether that is sort of the initial fee that Forest paid for Gibbs-White or the total fee, because I know it's rising to an astronomical fee for sort of a championship player in Gibbs-White. But if it's the initial fee, that would be probably about 50 million, because that's what Forest have initially paid to Wolves, and I would be comfortable spending that sort of money for a player of Neto's quality. The thing that just stands out for me is his 1v1 ability, and I think really that's the most important thing for an Arteta winger, especially a right winger, the ability to be isolated against your fullback and sort of more often than not beat him. And just be comfortable in those situations and secure on the ball. And I think that's exactly what Neto is, and unfortunately what Nicolas Pepe hasn't been able to be for Arsenal as an understudy for Bukayo Saka. So yeah, it's a clear upgrade in my opinion, and a positive move from the club.
Yeah, I think the priorities clearly changed with what we want to do from here on in the window, or maybe not internally, but for us, we've been insistent on this left day, getting this left day in. We felt Granit Xhaka was a bit of a square peg in a round hole in that position. He could do some very good things, but there's some certain situations on the pitch where you think someone more naturally gifted in this area, someone who's better in tight areas, a bit more creative, can play more incisive passes, can drive past a player, could give us something extra in that area of the pitch. I think the way Xhaka started the season, and we know how functional he is there, that we can sort of live with that, and we have some potential options which we'll be able to look at in the Europa League, and if they excel, we can bring them in that position. The likes of Sambi Lokonga, Fabio Vieira, Emile Smith-Rowe could play there. We could use Zinchenko in there as well. So I think there's options there. The thing we said on the podcast yesterday is we are light in the forward areas up after our front three that started our last three games, Jesus, Saka, and Martinelli. It's basically Smith, Rowe, and Nketiah, and we're then forced to use one of those starting three in a League Cup game or in an away game in Azerbaijan on a Thursday night, unless we trust a very, very raw 19-year-old in Marquinhos to play all those minutes, which will be a substantial amount of minutes. I think we both agreed that the priority has to be another attacking player, forward or wide forward, in this remaining weeks. And the thing I liked about Neto, I said it again on the podcast yesterday, he is of a quality level where if you take Bukayo Saka out the side and put Neto in, it's not a huge drop off in quality, and he can do similar things to Bukayo Saka. He profiles similarly statistically in terms of his ball carrying and dribbling numbers and the amount of shots he gets. So he could do a lot of what Saka does, maybe a slight drop off in quality, but he's also 22, so there's plenty of room to grow. And he's also at the stage where he's not going to come in and it's like he needs to play every single minute like Rafinha would have demanded. I think with this injury, he needs maybe a bit of time to settle in and play not every minute and not have all the onus on him like it is at Wolves. Play around better players to get back to where he was before his big injury. with his kneecap, I think it was. So I think profile-wise, it makes so much sense. Also, obviously, there's the Portuguese link. So culturally, he'll be able to come in and settle in, given half our squad speaks Portuguese now. And yeah, from the things that stood out to me with the initial viewing of the scouting video is really explosive, and a lot of those clips were pre-injury, so maybe there's a question mark about that, but really good one-on-one, as you said, can beat a man. I also think his delivery from out wide is really good, not just in set pieces, but I think his crossing, he picks men out, and we don't necessarily have the biggest aerial presences in the box, but we have players who can score headers and good in the air if you can pick them out with accurate deliveries, and he's really good at that, both on the left side and the right side, whether that's coming back on his left or he's decent with his right foot as well. He can definitely do more in terms of output. He hasn't had the goals and assist numbers at this moment, but he is a young player still. I think people forget that. And he was putting up decent output numbers, actually, I think, in his best season for Wolves prior to the injury. So, yeah. How do you think he'll fit in? And, yeah, just any comments on all that, Rob?
Well, I think there's probably justifiable concerns regarding the injury, but I think given how good he was before, I think it's a gamble that the club would be willing to take. And even post injuries, there's like glimpses of a top player in there regardless. I watched him against Spurs at the weekend. He wasn't, he didn't set the world alight, but you can tell that there's talent in this guy. But you can also tell that he's had a big injury layoff. But as you were sort of talking about with the sort of playing opportunities at Arsenal, surely this is a fantastic place for him to fully recover from this injury and hopefully get back to his best. There's not that onus to play every week. He can pick up minutes in the Europa League. And let's face it, he wouldn't be a first choice winger at Arsenal, at least to start with. And then I think another thing to consider, we sort of spoke about this with Rafinha, but there was a lack of evidence, whereas I've seen a lot more from Neto to suggest he actually can play on the left. So that's exciting. You can play Neto and Saka in the same team, I think. Even though they profile quite similar statistically, I think they're quite different players stylistically. Neto's a very hard runner with the ball. I spoke about that on the podcast yesterday, and I really like that. I love that from a winger, and so does Mikel Arteta, as sort of evidenced through Gabriel Martinelli's role in the team. So, yeah, I think all round, it's a signing which just makes a lot of sense. And I think it would be something that the club would be wise to push forward to. I like that £50 million ballpark. I wouldn't want to go too far over it, but when you're looking at some of the other transfer fees being thrown around, Anthony Gordon potentially going to Chelsea for 60 million and Anthony from Ajax potentially going to United for more than 100. Like, I think you've got to pay what you need for a winger in this current market, and if that is more than 50 million, I think unfortunately it would be something that we'd perhaps have to come to terms with.
Yeah, and I think 50 million is probably, for me, cutting, sort of getting to the limit. I had a look at Wolves' departures this summer and their incomings, and I think their net spend is something like 70 million or 70 odd million, 75 million, something like that. And it looks like they're bringing in that 6'7" striker, which would mean, and he's going to cost, I think, another 30 odd million, something like that. So it looks like their net spend is going to be at 100 million. So they may need to recoup some of that with a big sale, and that could open the door for Neto to come to us. They haven't been shy of letting players go when they've let Jota go previously. So I think it's very real possibility we can get this deal done. But I would be wary not to overpay. I know I'm looking at Chelsea with Gordon. I know what you're saying. He's a much better player than Gordon. He might be better than Anthony. I think Anthony has very high potential, but as we're talking about, the fees are insanity. So yeah, I'll be cautious not to make them overpay, and if it gets to a certain fee, I think we've been good at that this summer. We pulled out the Martinez deal when it got too high. We pulled out of it looked like we sort of weren't willing to pay too much for Rafinha. So hopefully we'll do a similar thing in this case. If it does get too high, we'll pull out because it's not worth it. We've got other targets, presumably. We've been linked to the likes of Jeremy Pino and Cody Gakpo. So yeah, all in all, I'm very positive about this potential deal, and I would like to see it. And it's another exciting young player to add to our cohort of exciting young players. So yeah, and he seems like a great personality-wise character. He seems like Clive was saying, the way he speaks, he really seems like he wants to be a superstar, and he's smart and he's very self-aware, which is good. Yeah, anything to add, Rob?
No, I would just sort of second what you were saying about Wolves potentially needing to sell. They've already got a number of wingers on their books, and they've actually reintegrated Adama Traore, who of course is another right winger. So potentially there is a deal to be done there. I think that citation of the Jota sale is quite a good one. They're happy to sell when they get the money that they need. And I read I saw something on Twitter saying from a football finance expert who said the Wolves do need cash this summer, so the net spend can't be too big. So yeah, wouldn't say it's definitely going to happen. I think Arsenal will definitely be cautious about the money they're spending in the remainder of the transfer window, considering how much we've spent over the last couple of years. But I definitely wouldn't rule it out. It's a really exciting transfer link, as you said.
Cheeky little Maitland Niles just bargained into the deal. Who knows? They were after him a few summers ago, so maybe they still hold an interest. I'm not sure there's too much of an. I think fullbacks wise, they're pretty stacked. They've got some very good midfield options now, so I don't know how he'd necessarily fit in. But who knows? Maybe test the waters with that. Yeah, thanks very much, Rob. Follow Rob on Twitter at AFC Blogger 49. And follow me at Alfie Colshall. Those will be in the description. And subscribe to the YouTube channel if you want to see more of these little insight transfer videos. Yes, and hopefully we'll have plenty more. All right. Bye.